Hello anime and manga fans, I'm Kyle Glockner and welcome back to another episode of Animanga. It's the final show of the semester and I decided I wanted to go out with a bang. It's gonna take a while, so without further ado, I'll be reviewing the Monogatari series. Now before we truly begin, the Monogatari series is famous for its complicated watch list that rivals the MCU. But don't worry, I've got a nifty little flowchart to explain the watch order and chronology of the series. So, take it away, me. Okay, so the Monogatari series watch order starts off simple enough, starting us at Bake Monogatari, then moving into Nisei Monogatari and Neko Monogatari Kuro. Then we move into what is known as the Monogatari second season, which includes Neko Monogatari Shiro, Kabuki Monogatari, Otori Monogatari, Oni Monogatari, Koi Monogatari, and Hana Monogatari, which are watched in that order. After that, we have Tsuki Monogatari, Owari Monogatari Parts 1 and 2, Koyomi Monogatari, Owari Monogatari Part 3, and the recent Zoku Owari Monogatari. There's also the Kizu Monogatari movie trilogy that can be watched at any point, but I personally recommend watching it sometime between Owari and Koyomi. Now, as far as the chronology is concerned, the reason you can watch Kizu Monogatari at any point is because it comes first in the series. This is followed by Neko Monogatari Kuro, Bake Monogatari, Nisei Monogatari, Kabuki Monogatari, Oni Monogatari, and Neko Monogatari Shiro, while Owari Monogatari Part 2 takes place during Neko Shiro. After that, we have the events of Owari Monogatari Part 1, Otori Monogatari, Koi Monogatari, Tsuki Monogatari, Owari Monogatari Part 3, Zoku Owari Monogatari, and finally Hana Monogatari. Koyomi Monogatari is a series of shorts that takes place in between the major arcs, but don't have any huge impact on the story overall, except in the end, but we won't get into that here. If you're just getting into the series, definitely go with the watch order rather than the chronological order, as that's the order it's, well, meant to be watched in. Okay, I know that was a lot to take in, but trust me, it's all worth it in the end. The Monogatari series tells the various tales of Koyomi Araragi, a human-turned-vampire who finds himself involved in case after case of oddities and supernatural events affecting those around him. For a series with a watch order as complex as it is, the premise is surprisingly simple, which is one place where I think the series truly shines. The Monogatari series, at its core, is just as I described it. A typical arc involves Araragi discovering a problem someone's having and working with them to get it fixed. Whether it's helping the ghost girl Mayoi Hachikuji, calming the possessed Tsuruga Kanbaru, quelling the flip side of Tsubasa Hanakawa, or anything else, Araragi does his best to help those affected. This remains the norm for the first season, or up until Neko Monogatari Kuro. But after that, the formula starts getting mixed up with the oddities and the characters themselves, and this is where the series truly begins to shine. Now, some of you may be confused as to how I can call the plot of this series simple. Anyone who's watched the series before knows that following what's going on in each episode can be a struggle, to say the least, as watching this series can feel more like you're watching a book, but in the best way possible. The reason for this is mainly due to the writing style of Nisei Ueson and the gorgeous animation done by Shaft. If Monogatari were adapted by any studio other than Shaft, it wouldn't even be recognizable as the same show. When you strip each Monogatari arc down to its core, an arc generally consists of a handful of roundabout conversations, maybe a light action sequence or two, and then it's over. No joke. I actually counted that in Hana Monogatari, there are around 6 to 8 conversations that climax at a slam dunk. That's it. And you know what? That is my favorite arc of the entire series. But what makes a series this simple so engaging is partially owed to Shaft's animation. Shaft takes the simple structure of a Monogatari episode and splatters it all over their metaphorical canvas. Since most of the episodes are just static conversations, in order to make them more anime than audiobook, the scenes are animated in a very abstract manner, oftentimes playing to the strengths of Nisei Ueson's roundabout writing. Shaft has really taken this series to new heights with their animation, even when compared to their other shows, which are already considered to have some of the most over-the-top animation. But now I'd like to go back to the plot for a bit and those conversations I mentioned earlier. Like I said before, each arc mainly consists of a handful of conversations before it's over, and while that may sound like one of the most boring things in the world to some, I assure you they are anything but. The writing in this series is some of the best I've seen across all shows, anime and beyond. The amount of wit each character brings to the table is enough for each of them to support a full series on their own. Throw multiple characters of that caliber in the same room and make them have a small chat, and you've got a recipe for some of the most entertaining scenes I've seen across any show. No scene ever feels like it's being dragged along to get further in the plot because there's always some sort of motion occurring in the narrative, even if it doesn't serve that big of a purpose in the overall plot. To supplement that point, I'd like to talk about the various characters of the series. We get introduced to several characters throughout the many arcs of the show, with around 15 regularly occurring characters by my count. Now, while some series might tend to brush some of these characters aside for the sake of the main few, that is not the case with this series, as the various arcs of Monogatari tend to give each of their characters their own focus, with each of them being at least one of the primary characters of at least one arc, which also includes a new opening song sung by that character. Each character is written extremely well and holds their own amongst this colorful cast. Their personalities are very distinct, and each one is given proper space as to not confuse them with another character in the show. But overall, the characters each flow together very well. Their different personalities all play off each other and create some dynamics that I never knew I needed or even wanted to see between two characters, but Nisei Uesun knew I wanted it, and he created these amazing characters that could only exist within this universe. I'll dive into one character in particular, our protagonist, Koyomi Araragi. We learned in the very first episode that Araragi is anything but our standard male protagonist. Yeah, he takes on a couple of tropes of wanting to help everyone, and sometimes he can be a bit naive, but it all serves a purpose to the greater plot. While many of the oddities Araragi faces do manifest into actual supernatural beings, more often than not the solution is surprisingly human for the situation, and all help the characters move past certain events that may have been holding them back and allow them to grow. Part of the climax of the entire series is Araragi's attempts to save everyone coming back to haunt him, and while there's way more to the climax than just this, in the end, Araragi has to make some pretty weighty decisions that I won't spoil if you want to enjoy the series for yourself. But every one of these 15 or so characters has amazing character development throughout this lengthy series, and I can't think of a single one that I even slightly dislike. You'll be able to find multiple characters to fall in love with, and they're honestly one of the best parts of the series. Overall, the Monogatari series is fantastic and I cannot recommend it enough. Definitely don't try to jump into it if you're relatively new to anime or watching anime with subtitles, as there is a lot of reading involved with watching this series. I personally had to go back through a couple episodes just to catch what was going on, but it was all worth it in the end. The Monogatari series is written by Nisei Uesun and currently sits at 28 planned volumes, while the anime was done by Studio Shaft and covers 18 of those volumes. This series is definitely worth the effort to watch, and it'll honestly change your perspective on a lot of shows that you have already watched and shows that you watch after Monogatari. Do yourself a favor and give it a shot. But that's all the time I have for today, so let me know what you think by tweeting me at ZTV Goofing Off using the hashtag Animanga. Until then, I'm Kyle Glockner, and this has been Animanga.